And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for Thursday morning. Big area IFR here covering the Bering Sea on down into the Aleutians, and then some IFR here from the south side of Unalaska Island northeastward toward Kodiak Island, mostly marginal there. Marginal VFR up into the central eastern Kenai Peninsula, Resurrection Bay, Prince William Sound, into Turnagain Arm, and a little bit to the north in the Copper River Basin, but not too far. Good VFR in the interior all the way up until you get to the Arctic coast, and then you're into some marginal VFR. Marginal VFR also for the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle. And for the afternoon, burns off a little bit here over the inside waters, southeast coast becoming VFR. Marginal VFR from the North Gulf Coast into Prince William Sound again. Solid VFR here in the interior, now all the way up and including the Arctic coast, but some marginal VFR there over the Chukchi Sea in toward Kotzebue, Kivalina, on up to Point Hope and Cape Lisburne. And IFR just south of St. Lawrence Island down to the west side of Nunivak Island, covering the Pribilofs down to Atka Island, on out to the west. Marginal VFR eastern Aleutians, most of the Alaska Peninsula, and some IFR up the east side of Kodiak Island. That holds there. Therefore, Chiniak Marmot Bay there in toward Ozinki for Kodiak Island IFR. Better conditions off to the west, becoming VFR for Bristol Bay. And some marginal VFR now for Friday morning all the way up into the Talkeetna Mountains, but Cook Inlet and the Susitna Valley and just about everywhere else in the interior will be VFR. Marginal VFR, central eastern Arctic coast. And some IFR along the south coast of the Panhandle. And then for Friday, IFR, south coast of the Panhandle there. And then that kind of pulls back to the west in the afternoon Friday with pretty much VFR over the inside waters, especially to the north here. And North Gulf Coast, Cook Inlet, VFR, east side of Kodiak, Fognak Islands, marginal. But we got good VFR again all the way up to the Arctic coast there. And IFR, a little less extensive, but still quite an area here covering the Bering Sea, especially over the central and western areas. And a little bit of improvement here for the Aleutians, marginal VFR, actually Alaska Peninsula. Then you get back into some IFR there for Amchitka and Kiska Islands. Passes, Hanatuvik and Adigan. Another VFR day coming up for both those passes in the Brooks Range. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR. VFR also for rainy and windy. Isabel, VFR once again. VFR from Antasta and Tanita VFR, but Portage looking marginal throughout the day on Thursday. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR as well. Freezing levels about 6,000 to 8,000 feet here with the 6,000 foot line out toward the west coast, 8,000 feet, 8,000 to 9,000 feet here over toward the eastern areas of the warmest air over the Northwest Territories of Canada, and about 8,000 to 9,000 feet for the southeast coast. This area of chilly air pulling back slowly westward into Russia. Otherwise, the western southwest Bering Sea and Aleutians, 8,000 to 10,000 feet. Icing, could be some isolated moderate icing here. Tanana Valley, Alaska range into the Kuskokwim Valley down into the southwest mountains. And another area here for Kodiak Island, the Aleutian range on up into southern Cook Inlet. And from there, looking at the jet stream, pretty light wind flow at this elevation here, basically high pressure up over the interior, keeping winds light over all of interior Alaska. Light northwest flow here across the central Aleutians. And generally west-southwest winds here from Kodiak Island across the Gulf of Alaska. Pretty light, though, into the northern Panhandle. Looking at 9,000 feet, light southerly winds for the southeast coast, light east to southeast winds across the North Gulf Coast here, and even lighter and more variable into the interior, all the way up to the Arctic coast. Bering Sea, light variable winds there, including the Aleutians. 9,000 feet, light variable winds out over the Bering Sea, as well as much of mainland Alaska. We've got some easterlies at this elevation, about 30 knots here in this narrow band from the Gulf of Alaska to just west of Kodiak Island. And then for turbulence with these light wind conditions, no significant turbulence expected around the state for Thursday.